The contribution of national service after school, especially to preparing graduates for the job market, cannot be overemphasized. Here in Ghana, we do have a national service system which works, even though there have been several debates about the scheme, including proposals for compulsory military training for those graduates. Today in our crossover, I'm going to tell you about how some politicians in Germany are also pushing for an introduction of a national service scheme, as well as a reintroduction of a military training which was abolished in that country in 2011. Hans Brandt is political correspondent with our partners DW. He joins me all the way from Berlin. Hans, it's good to have you. Now, Ghana already implements a national service scheme where graduates get to spend about a year serving in various organizations for some monthly stipend. How does it work in Germany, and why was it cancelled before?
Well, the case in Germany was that until 2011 there was just compulsory military service, and only for male graduates, for male people leaving school. And what happened then is that a lot of people did not in fact want to do the military service and did an alternative social service. In the end, it came to pass that only about 20% of people who were eligible for this service eventually actually performed such service, and so the whole scheme was eventually cancelled. The situation at the moment is that you can do a voluntary social service also for 1 year, but the fact is that only quite few people actually do that. So politicians in Germany here, especially from conservative parties, have been saying in recent days and weeks that some form of compulsory service, both for men and for women, should be reintroduced, and not with a military component, but mainly emphasizing the social requirements of Germany, such things as care for the aged, care for children, care in hospitals, that sort of thing. So that's really what's being proposed, a compulsory service for men and women, mainly in a social sphere.
Well, I get then what it means then is that what's going to be done differently really is to make it compulsory. That's the national service, to make it compulsory as against the voluntary service that it is now. But how soon is Germany looking to bring this back?
Well, that's the big question. In fact, you're right, of course, that it will be compulsory and it will have to be paid for by the state. So money will have to be found for this. A legal basis will have to be established for this. So we are in the pretty early stages of the discussion, the political discussion on this matter at the moment. But what's actually been quite surprising here in Germany is that there has been support for this idea quite far across the political spectrum. So it's not just empty words. It seems pretty likely, pretty possible that the discussions will eventually lead to the introduction of such a compulsory service. But at the moment we cannot say when that will be.
Let's speak about the military training, because Ghana did flirt with the idea of bringing that military training as part of the graduate preparation for life, but then it didn't seem quite attractive to many around here. What was the situation as to how it was implemented in Germany? How did it work?
Well, it was, in the past it was simply compulsory military service for young men, and if you didn't want to do military service, you would have to do some sort of communal service, which was in fact the time that you had to spend that communal service was longer than the military service. What's being proposed now, as I've said, is mainly a service to the community, but there is also a possibility of reintroducing some form of voluntary military service. Of course, at the moment the military is a professional army, and if you want to join the professional army, simply take a job in the military. You can do that at the moment. So there is quite a lot of possibility of variation still in how exactly this is going to be set up. At the moment there are some politicians who say that the military component should be cancelled completely, should not be reintroduced. Others are saying that if people want to voluntarily join the army for a limited period of time, they should be allowed to do so.
Join it voluntarily. Well, in that scheme of things, we're looking at a global security challenge of terrorism, and all the countries around the world are looking to deal with it. How quickly does Germany intend, to establish the graduate military training, and to what extent, by the way, do you think that it could prove effective, perhaps, in dealing with this security challenge of terrorism?
Well, at the moment, the German army and the defense ministry have been saying that they are not considering taking on voluntary military service personnel. their decision was made, as I said, about 7 years ago, that they wanted to turn the German army into a professional army. And the reason for that was basically that the duties of the German army in some sense have changed. It's no longer the case that the German military has to play the traditional role of defending German territory, because the threat of an attack on Germany itself has been reduced since the end of the Cold War. Instead, other tasks, military tasks, have become much more important. For instance, there are German soldiers in your region in Mali, stationed in Mali. There are German soldiers stationed in Afghanistan. And for these kind of military jobs, you need professional soldiers. You cannot do that kind of work with draftees who are only involved in military work for a limited period of time. So the idea is to professionalize the German army, to give it better equipment, to do the same sort of more challenging job with fewer people. So at the moment, the German military is saying they don't really want to take in military draftees.
All right, Hans, thank you so much for bringing us in on what the German country actually does in terms of a national service. Well, here in Ghana, we do have a national service that work. We have youth in various schemes, some in agriculture, some even in traffic direction, yes. Well, thanks that we know how it's done or how it's been done in Germany. We'll be following to see whether or not the military training will be rolled out and how the national service will be rolled out when it does. Hans Brandt, by the way, is a political correspondent with our partners DW, bringing us up to speed on what's happening across the continent. This is still The Pulse with me, Gifty, and up here.